Hello, viewers. Welcome back. In today's episode, we will talk about a fracture which is very common in traffic accidents or sports injury, especially in cyclists, motorcyclists, car drivers, or the passengers. The topic today is fractured clavicle. Fractures of the clavicle are quite common. It accounts for up to 10% of all fractures. It is the most common fracture of childhood. A fall onto the lateral shoulder most frequently causes a clavicular fracture. Clavicle fractures do occur in isolation, but when there is a high energy injury, one should always look for associated injuries like a pneumothorax, a pneumothorax, or maybe head trauma. Apart from a fall on the shoulder, less commonly, the clavicular fractures may result from direct trauma to the clavicle or from a fall onto an outstretched hand. They are the most common fractures during childhood and represent 95% of fractures that are seen during childbirth. Approximately 2/3 of all clavicle fractures occur in males. In children, the middle third of the clavicle is most commonly found to be involved. In children younger than 10, these are frequently non-displaced. In children older than 10 years, the majority of clavicular fractures are displaced.
As we know, the clavicle is the only osseous link between the upper extremity and the trunk. And due to its superficial subcutaneous location and the numerous ligaments and the muscular forces applied to it, the clavicle is easily fractured. And because the midshaft of the clavicle is the thinnest segment and does not contain the ligamentous attachment, it is the most easily fractured location. Many important structures are adjacent to the clavicle and thus subject to injury when a fracture occurs. The subclavian artery passes anterior to the first rib and is in close proximity with the middle segment of the clavicle. In addition, the brachial plexus also course behind the clavicle and are at risk when there is a fracture of the middle third. The clavicular fractures were classified by Ellman, and according to this classification, Ellman presented a three-type anatomical classification for the clavicular fractures. The type 1 were the fractures of the middle third, which is the most common type seen. Type 2 is the fracture distal to the coracoclavicular ligament, and type 3 are the fractures of the proximal or the medial end of the clavicle. Later on, Neer made a significant revision to the Ellman's classification by suggesting subdivisions to type 2 and the type 3. Patients with clavicular fractures typically presents with well-localized pain over the fracture site. The affected extremity is typically held close to the body, and the patients may report a snapping or a cracking sound when the injury occurs. On physical examination, the patient may present with a visible or palpable deformity over the fracture site. The shoulder is typically pulled downwards in patients with fracture of the middle third of the clavicle due to the effect of the pectoralis major and latissimus dorsi muscle on the distal fragment. The sternocleidomastoid muscle displaces the proximal fragment upwards. Because of the proximity of the brachial plexus and the subclavian vessels to the clavicle, it is important to perform a complete neurovascular examination for fracture clavicle. The decreased distal pulses, discoloration or edema may be present in a subclavian vessel injury. The brachial plexus injury may result in a distal neurological finding. A complete lung examination should be performed, as rarely there may be an injury to the lung apex resulting in pneumothorax or hemothorax. Shortness of breath or diminished breath sounds may be a clinical clue. Palpation of the surrounding ribs and scapula should be performed to evaluate for possible associated rib or scapular fractures.
A standard antero-posterior clavicle radiograph should be obtained in all patients who present with an injury to the clavicle. A CT scan may sometimes be necessary to guide treatment in the less frequent proximal or distal fractures to evaluate intra-articular involvement. Immediate orthopedic consultation should be obtained for patients with neurovascular compromise, open fractures, tenting of the skin, severe angulation or displacement, or any break in the skin near the fracture. These are absolute indications for surgery. In Group 1 or the mid-shaft clavicle fractures, conservative non-operative management is the most common approach. Treatment of these fractures consists of supportive or reductive measures. Supportive treatment involves the placement of a sling or a sling and swat, while reductive treatment includes the use of a figure-of-8 brace. Similar union rates have been achieved using either method. In case of Group 2 or distal clavicle fractures, patients should be immobilized with a simple sling or sling and swat. Figure-of-8 braces should be avoided in these cases, as they may increase the displacement of the fracture. Because non-union is seen in approximately 30% of these cases, an orthopedic referral is necessary. Definitive treatment is still controversial, with some studies showing improved outcome with surgical fixation, while others show similar outcomes in patients managed non-operatively. Non-displaced proximal Group 3 clavicle fractures are treated conservatively, with a sling used for support and comfort. Analgesics and early range of motion are encouraged. Significantly displaced proximal clavicle fractures are rare due to very strong ligamentous support in this area. Serious associated injuries are found in approximately 90% of displaced proximal clavicle fractures. If signs of neurovascular compromise exist, displaced proximal fractures should be immediately reduced. These patients should carefully be evaluated for severe intrathoracic injury. Treatment for children is similar to adults. Because of the great periosteal regeneration potential in children, healing occurs more quickly than in adults. Callus formation can be prominent in children, and parents should be educated that this is a normal finding.
The prognosis of the majority of clavicular fractures is good. Clinical union is by 6 to 12 weeks in adults and 3 to 6 weeks in children. Patients should perform a range of motion and strengthening exercises under the care of physical therapy once immobilization is no longer necessary. Patients typically may resume full daily activity approximately 6 weeks after injury and requiring 2 to 4 months of rehabilitation. Return to a full contact sports requires the athlete to demonstrate radiographic evidence of bone healing, no tenderness to palpation, a full range of motions, and a normal shoulder strength.
So folks, that's all for today. Keep following Anatomy Weekly. We'll see you next time. Thank you.